Drivers on California's Highway 1 are often shocked to see a herd of zebra grazing on the hills of San Simeon. Even more incredible is the story of how they got there, starting with an eccentric newspaper mogul building a zoo a century ago. I dug into old documents, including a 1960s research paper, to learn all there is to know about these all-American zebra. Zebra are a popular attraction at zoos and several small ranches across the United States, with the occasional escape making the news.
I was coming around the corner and I saw something sitting in the middle of the road, and I knew it wasn't a deer because it was kind of bigger than a deer. Once my headlights hit it, I was just amazed. It was a zebra just sitting there.
They first arrived in the Americas for traveling shows and menageries in the early 1800s. When Philadelphia opened the first American zoo in 1874, reports say they had a zebra. A newspaper covered a new arrival in 1887. In the early 1900s, there was a wave of research by the US, German, and Indian militaries into zebra hybrids with horses and donkeys, sadly given up when cars and trucks became available. To know how the zebras got to the Hearst Ranch and the state park, you need to meet the Hearst family. In 1820, George Hearst was born on a farm in Missouri Territory. After a basic education, he went into the mining business and eventually settled in San Francisco. Later in life, he took over a newspaper, the San Francisco Examiner, to settle a gambling debt. He would hand the Examiner over to his son, William Randolph Hearst. While George was a successful businessman, William would form a media empire, certainly a billionaire in today's dollars. Infamously, he was one of the inspirations for the movie Citizen Kane.
Xanadu's livestock, the biggest private zoo since Noah.
While his father had collected racehorses, William decided to build a huge mansion and private zoo on his ranch in Southern California. The so-called Hearst Castle includes statues, panels, ceilings, floors, and even entire rooms and buildings moved from Europe. The pool would later be used in Hollywood movies to evoke ancient Rome. Hearst's zoo started with 2 lions in 1924. Visitors reported seeing zebra, along with bison, tigers, ostriches, and more by 1927. I believe this means we're at about 100 years of California zebras. Future Prime Minister Winston Churchill would visit in 1929, getting his car blocked by a giraffe for an hour. After the economic depression of the 1930s, most of the animals would need to be sold. John Connolly, the first keeper, was replaced by Carrie Baldwin. Then when Baldwin moved on to be director of the recently opened San Francisco Zoo, a WPA project, he would take many of the animals with him. All of the dangerous animals were gone by 1942. Baldwin later wrote a book about his experiences at both zoos. On the Hearst zebras he wrote, "Always stubborn and often vicious. I had one I broke to ride, and whenever he'd get tired of carrying me on his back, he'd just reach around, grab me by the leg, and pull me off." Ultimately, the animals which could sustain themselves on California ranches, the zebra, deer, Barbary sheep, and Roosevelt elk, stayed. These deer and sheep had feral populations outside the property around 1940. With one exception, the fallow deer, which I'll talk about at the end, the other animals continue to be seen in the area today. The zebras are just the most eye-popping. According to reports, the small population of zebra remained fenced in. Then a third of them were sold in 1951. The fate of the remaining 12 zebra was uncertain. Some accounts say that the zebra avoided being sold by escaping their paddock.
And he tried to keep the zebras. They stay in an enclosure, but then the fence gets knocked down in a storm, and before Hearst's remaining employees can handle it, some of the zebras get loose.
But in a book published in 1974, Hearst's son, Bill Jr., said that he and his wife deliberately released them. William Randolph Hearst died in 1951. His family began plans to transfer the expensive property to the state of California.
The imposing mountaintop mansion and 120 surrounding acres at San Simeon, California is opening as a state park,
which would open the park to the public in 1958. The family would keep their cattle ranch, which still exists today. Follow them on Instagram. In fashion designer Diana Vreeland's autobiography, she reports visiting the estate with Hearst Jr. And though he claimed not to have seen a zebra for 10 years, they found some right away on their trip. Reginald Barrett, who would go on to a long career as professor and researcher of California wildlife, came to San Simeon to write his master's thesis on the zebras and other exotic animals. This is an excellent snapshot of the state of the ranch. The zebra population was still quite small. There were 2 subspecies of zebra, Grant's zebra from the Serengeti and Chapman's zebra from southern Africa. The other animals had been sighted for miles in different directions, including an elk shot 40 miles away. The sambar deer were rumored to be kept in check by hunting by neighboring ranchers. 2 of the zebra had recently escaped the park grounds, with one being killed during an attempted recovery. No new zebra foals were seen in 1965, so there are worries that they were not thriving. Though Barrett did not note any risk for predators, there are rumors on Reddit that mountain lions could be a threat to baby zebras. If I'm going to cite the Megafauna Rewilding subreddit, I should mention that Barrett's paper does give a little credence to the ancestor of the zebra existing in North America in the Pliocene and Pleistocene. Around 1970, California took a more proactive approach toward wildlife management, both at San Simeon and on Catalina Island, where the famous bison herd had become overpopulated. The state decided to work with exotic animal dealers to bring in a zebra stallion to diversify and repopulate the San Simeon herd. After articles in 1972 reported dwindling visibility or reduced population, in 1973, 4 zebra foals were born. But in the 1980s, the deal with wildlife trader Earl Tatum soured. It's hard for me to know who might be at fault in this case. By the 1990s, Tatum went from being known as the premier animal transporter in North America to being named in multiple problematic stories, as the federal government began regulating the exotic animal trade. Most articles in the 2000s report a stable population of about 100 zebra. From then on, the San Simeon zebras rarely enter the limelight of news reports or scientific papers. Last year, a local radio station, KZRP, opened with a zebra logo.
99.3 Cambria, California.
And tourist information usually gives them a mention. You're never guaranteed to see a zebra, with Google Maps reviews and social media comments saying you should bring binoculars. The next time you're driving along and see something out of the corner of your eye, it might be a real wild zebra. But it hasn't always been smooth sailing. I found 2 incidents where zebras were the source of controversy. In 2011, 3 escaped zebra were shot by ranchers in nearby Cambria, California. They pointed out that the animals were scaring and risked harming their horses, but they also didn't hesitate to keep the zebra skins as trophies. Hundreds of comments were left on the local newspaper's website. There are North Coast ranchers who have been dealing with zebras on their property for years, alleging that when they call the Hearst Ranch to come and get the animals and fix the fences, their complaints are met with deaf ears. To me, this sounds like a long-running dispute between neighbors coming into the public eye in the worst possible way. Steve Hearst, a great-grandson of William Randolph Hearst, asked the community to contact the Hearst Ranch team if any zebras strayed onto their property. This is a reasonable way to reach out to the community, but is an indication to me that the zebra are maybe not as wild as people like to believe. In 2017, a zebra was found dead and skinned. The state investigated and found that it died naturally and fell into a ravine, where someone later took the skin. Deer from the old Hearst Zoo have been a problem for other parts of California. In the 1950s, there were 85 white fallow deer at Hearst Castle. When Barrett wrote his thesis in the 60s, he saw only 1 left. But that's not the end of their story. Kerry Baldwin, of the San Francisco Zoo, had sold a few dozen deer onward to Dr. Millard Odinger for a hunting lodge on Mount Vision, north of San Francisco. These flourished in Point Reyes and were a common sight in the area, to the detriment of local deer. By the 1970s, they were included in a list of invasive species in national parks, and staff were given the green light to shoot them. By the year 2000, over 1,000 fallow deer and hundreds of axis deer were counted. Point Reyes National Seashore used contraception and hunters to wipe out the population within a few years. The last sighting on iNaturalist was in 2007. Other fallow deer were placed further north, in Willits, California, where they continue to be seen in recent years. I'd like to thank everyone who wrote a comment on my New Mexico Oryx video, suggesting that I research zebras in California. They are real. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more science and history content. Maybe a comment if you have any interesting leads or future stories.